When most people think of volunteering, images of people like serving meals or building houses or picking up litter tend to fill their minds. That's certainly part of it. But as nonprofit leaders, if we limit our idea of what volunteering can be to just those types of activities, we're gonna miss out on a lot of volunteer potential. That's why in this video, I wanna inspire you to think a little outside the box about how volunteers can help your nonprofit. We're gonna talk through 14 creative ideas on how you can tap into the time and talents of volunteers. Welcome back. I'm Amber Melanie Smith, nonprofit founder, social entrepreneur, and social impact YouTuber. I have over 250 plus videos on this channel all about social impact, nonprofits, fundraising, mobilizing people to help your cause in the community, and more. And I hope you go check those out and find some great information out there for you in your own change-making journey. I also have a website you don't want to miss called changemakercafe.com, where I have all of my content neatly organized into categories and some other tools and resources like our Changemaker Accelerator membership that you can check out. And of course, Changemaker Mondays are weekly awesome newsletter with tips and strategies for you. The link to subscribe to that is below. When managed effectively, volunteers can bring a huge return on investment to nonprofits. In fact, about 1/3 of the nonprofit workforce is volunteers. In fact, one study by the National Council on Aging showed that for every dollar a nonprofit invests in its volunteer programs, they realize an ROI of $8 in savings and community impact. So how can we tap into some creative ways to utilize volunteers? Let's jump into these 14 ideas, and I have them broken down into 4 categories for you: skills-based volunteering, leadership volunteering, virtual volunteering, and do-it-yourself or DIY volunteering. The first type of volunteering roles we're going to talk about are skills-based or corporate volunteering. A great way to tap into volunteer talents is, of course, by using the professional skills that they might take to their job every day. This can be done with individual volunteers or even corporate groups, which can be a great way to build relationship with companies also who might maybe become a future sponsor, funder, you never know. So here are some example volunteer roles that fit in this category. Role number 1, or volunteer activity number 1, is as an SEO or website audit volunteer. Now, this would be a great fit for someone who has maybe like a marketing agency or does this as part of their day job. But basically what this volunteer is going to do is they're going to take a look at your website and see how SEO friendly or how findable on the internet your website is. Or they can also do other things that make sure that the website is able to increase its accessibility, make sure the fonts are a good size, and just basically audit the site to make sure that it is findable and viewable and accessible to as many people as possible. Idea number 2 for a volunteer role is a content repurposing specialist. Now, that sounds really fancy, but it's actually quite simple. This would be a great role for someone who knows their way around, like I said, marketing or social media or video content. But basically what they're going to do is they're going to take some of your existing content for your nonprofit, maybe it's past videos or blog articles or even some of the text on your website, and they're going to come up with ways to repurpose it for more social media content that can amplify your nonprofit's message. Maybe they can repurpose it in the form of fun infographics or bite-sized social posts or short or long form videos, which are very helpful to telling the story of your organization. A third potential volunteer role that falls under the skills-based category is as a trainer or workshop facilitator. So maybe you determine that your board, staff, or core volunteer team really needs some additional education or training on some topic related to your work, like nonprofit accounting basics or business planning or financial management or some human resources topic. If you partner with a company or a firm that offers this, or even a solopreneur who has the skill set, or a retiree who has the skill set, potentially this could be a great way for them to volunteer their time while boosting the capacity of your whole team. And that's a great segue to the fourth idea that I'm going to share that's under this category, which is just simply short or long-term pro bono or consulting sessions, consulting work. So you might have someone with specific skill sets come in and offer advice or do tasks related to marketing or legal support. I know in my own organization, we had an awesome volunteer create a crisis communications plan for our organization, which is basically, what do we do if the worst happens, if something terrible happens in the world and we need to respond to it, or something terrible happens to us in our organization and we need to respond to it with public messaging. So it was a great how-to guide on how to handle that. But that's the type of thing that a skilled volunteer could create for your organization. Whether you're recruiting and managing skills-based volunteers, hands-on or direct service volunteers, or even virtual volunteers, you need a volunteer management solution that is easy to use. And for that, Volunteer Hub, the sponsor of today's video, has got you covered. Volunteer Hub is trusted by thousands of nonprofits of all sizes, from the Alzheimer's Association to Habitat for Humanity to Junior Achievement and more. With Volunteer Hub, you're going to be able to really streamline your volunteer recruitment process. You're going to be able to allow volunteers to search for available opportunities and schedule themselves, and enable you to track volunteer engagement over time for your reporting. And you're going to be able to use automated reminder emails or text messages reminding your volunteers to show up for when they are scheduled. This is going to save you hours managing volunteer communications. Trust me, as a former volunteer manager myself, I know how time-consuming these tasks can be. And don't even get me started on logging all those volunteer hours. Fortunately, Volunteer Hub has a kiosk where volunteers can check in when they arrive, which is going to help you log the hours automatically. This is so handy when you have to do some reporting on a grant that's asking about volunteer or in-kind contributions, or even for your own impact reports that you share with your community. I know back when I was a volunteer manager, we would also get so many requests all the time from corporate groups and school groups and civic groups. And with Volunteer Hub, you can create a custom landing page that greets them by name so that they can share that custom link with their group members to sign up to volunteer. They are just gonna love that. And of course, there's all sorts of other software platforms that Volunteer Hub can integrate with. This is gonna allow you to manage background checks all in one place, and even identify which volunteers are also donors to your organization, because we know that volunteers have a higher likelihood of becoming financial contributors to your cause too. I would love for you to go get a free demo of Volunteer Hub and let me know what you thought. I'm going to leave the link to do that below this video. All right, thank you Volunteer Hub for sponsoring this video. The second category of ideas for volunteer roles that I want to cover here today is leadership and outreach volunteering. And I created this category because there are just so many ways that volunteers can be ambassadors for your mission out there in the community. And every volunteer has their own group of friends and social network that they could potentially tap into to educate about your mission, or maybe one day inspire them to become donors as well. So the 4 ideas I'm going to share under this umbrella are all about volunteers taking some kind of leadership position with your organization, or doing that outreach to be ambassadors into the community. The first volunteer role I want to talk about under this category is a volunteer advisory board member. So many organizations that I know of and have partnered with over the years have an advisory board made up of community volunteers. And there are so many benefits to doing this, to include getting a different perspective on your programs, to, like I said, increasing that pool of ambassadors. Another great thing about having a volunteer advisory board is these people are getting a taste of what it's like to lead or understand some deeper aspect of your organization, which makes them great potential future board of directors candidates. I know in my own organization, we had an advisory board, and it was often a pipeline for people who later became board members. So that is a great volunteer role if you don't have an advisory board already. I highly recommend it. The next role here under the leadership and outreach category is as a volunteer peer-to-peer fundraiser. Now, we talked about the ins and outs of how to do peer-to-peer fundraising in a recent video, so go check that out. But what's great about this is when properly equipped and empowered, volunteers can become some of your greatest fundraisers. The reason for that is people in their own networks are going to be more likely to donate when that person asks them, because they know, they trust, and are friends with that person. So by having peer-to-peer fundraisers who are well-trained, you're going to basically extend your fundraising team. The next role I want to talk about is something I call a story seeker, but it might be better understood if I share another name for it, which is basically just a social media ambassador. And I know it sounds like a small thing, but we can't underestimate the power of storytelling and showing what things look like behind the scenes for your organization. We can't underestimate those things. Those things lead to donations, trust, credibility, etc. So for this role, a volunteer might do a social media takeover where they, join your account and are showing what it looks like behind the scenes. Maybe they're following themselves or other volunteers in a day of the life of a volunteer at ABC organization. Maybe they are sharing their own perspective on the issue that you're tackling. It could be any number of things, but by equipping your volunteers that you trust to do some of the social media work, you're going to be expanding the different ways to look at your mission, which is going to bring more people in. Not terribly dissimilar from advisory board or social media ambassador is this role of a community ambassador. This is someone who's out in the community in person. They might be tabling at different community events to share about your mission. They might just be someone in charge of doing presentations to different groups. Maybe it's like a speakers bureau. But their entire role as a volunteer is to understand your mission really well and then go out in the community and share it. The next umbrella I'm going to talk about is virtual volunteering. Virtual volunteering has actually been around for a while, a couple of decades, but the COVID-19 pandemic really shined a light on it and made it more prevalent. So you might be hearing a bit more about it in these days than you did prior to the pandemic. This is a great type of volunteering if you don't have a physical location as a nonprofit, or maybe you just want to offer the convenience of allowing your volunteers to work remotely as a volunteer. So here are 3 creative volunteer roles in the virtual volunteering category. The first is a research volunteer. This could be a great role for an introvert or someone who is just really academic or loves to go down rabbit holes on the internet. But research volunteers can help you with all sorts of things. A common way to use research volunteers is grant research. So figuring out what opportunities are out there and helping you think through which grant opportunities could be a good fit for your cause. You might have them do stakeholder research, so assessing survey results from some feedback you wanted to collect about a certain program that you have. They could be researching which local government leaders are likely to be an advocate for your mission based on their track record. So research volunteers can really do a lot of things if they know what your goals are and are aligned with your needs. The next role is for volunteers for a volunteer focus group. And I think this is a lot of fun because it gives people an opportunity to share their thoughts and opinions, which we know people love to do. And it could be a short-term commitment, which could be very appealing to some people with very busy schedules. So for a focus group, you might ask a group targeted based on their skill sets or age or location in your community. It could be any number of different types of demographics that you would like the input from. But they could be giving you their honest feedback on a new program idea or how well they understood your fundraising pitch deck or any number of things. The next one I want to talk about is this idea of a digital advocacy volunteer. So this is someone who would be leading the virtual advocacy efforts for your organization. And if you're sort of unfamiliar, haven't done much advocacy work, it could involve outreach to local leaders. It could be mobilizing people to sign like a petition or express their opinion on some topic, some important thing that's coming up in your community. But this would be a virtual / potentially leadership role of someone who's coordinating these efforts behind the scenes. The fourth and final category of volunteering that I want to talk about today is do-it-yourself or DIY volunteering. And I love this option because we know volunteer managers are some of the busiest people on the planet. And sometimes it's just nice to know and trust that a group of volunteers is going to be out there doing something beneficial to your cause, and you don't have to supervise them all that much. That's the power of DIY volunteering. So to make this effective, quick pro tip, it's ideal if you can create some kind of DIY volunteer toolkit, maybe you host it on your site, but something that explains your needs, the logistics of working with you, a special request that you have, something that will help a volunteer feel confident and like they know how to be an effective DIY volunteer for you. I've seen some organizations do this really well, especially when you're doing something very targeted like a supply drive, which we'll talk about, but just something to keep in mind if you want to try out this kind of volunteering. So that first role is what I just alluded to, which is the DIY big sale or fundraiser or supply drive, right? So this is someone who knows that your organization has a need for something. Maybe it's dollars, hence the fundraiser. Maybe it is some certain type of supply. There are many organizations who distribute food or clothing or basic needs items, so this would probably be a really good fit for those. But you equip the volunteer with instructions on the types of items you need and where to deliver them once they've collected them, any criteria for things that you can't take, for example, any deadlines for when you need these items or deadline for the fundraiser, etc. And then you send them on their way. Of course, you should probably check in with them a couple of times throughout their drive or campaign because one, it's just the right thing to do. It's a nice thing to do, but also it helps them keep encouraged and motivated to keep going. And maybe they have questions too. So making sure that you're at least accessible to them if they have any needs or questions. Another great DIY role is someone who can repair things or upcycle things. It's a joke in the nonprofit world that we're all sitting on very old, broken office chairs, and it's very sad actually. But anyway, so if you have a volunteer who's handy and can take that office chair or whatever and repair it for you, that would be pretty awesome. I've seen some organizations, for example, that give out bikes to kids. They have volunteers who know how to repair bikes effectively, come in and do some of those repairs, or refurbishing computers is a great example too. So this could apply to a vast number of mission areas. And the final idea we're going to talk about, this is number 14 on the list of everything I just covered, is a DIY awareness party. So what this is a volunteer agrees to host a gathering, maybe at their favorite coffee shop, or maybe even at their home. Maybe they love throwing dinner parties. And their mission is to simply have a discussion with their guests and their friends about your cause and the mission. And it's a great way to potentially expand your list of supporters or people who you're in contact with who might be following you on your email list or social media. But it's an awesome way to expand your reach into the community. And if you provide, like I said, that toolkit, maybe even a little discussion guide, you're going to equip your volunteers to do a great job on this. I'm sure there are hundreds more creative ideas out there for how to tap into the power of volunteers. This was just 14, but I'd love to hear from you. What did you think? What are some of your creative ideas? Share all of that in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. We really want to reach as many change makers as possible. So when you do that, it really helps with that goal. As I mentioned before, don't forget to check out my website, changemakercafe.com, where I have all sorts of resources for you, including the link to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, Changemaker Mondays, where we send out tips and strategies and sometimes funding opportunities for organizations. You don't want to miss that. Like I said, check out the link below. That's all I have for you today. I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I'll see you next time. Bye.